There's a room in every dealership you will never see. It's not hidden. It's not locked. They'll walk you through the showroom, through the finance office, out to the test drive lane. But no one on that lot will ever take you back there. They call it the reconditioning bay. The recon bay if you've been in the business long enough. And I spent 15 years in that business, buying at auction, wholesaling, managing used car inventory, watching what happened inside that room every week. I'm going to tell you exactly what they do in there, what they fix, what they deliberately skip, and then I'm going to hand you the 5 specific moves that flip the entire transaction in your favour before you hand over a single dollar. But I need you to understand something first, because this is the part that most people get wrong. The dealers who skip things in recon are not careless. They're not distracted. Every decision made in that bay is a margin calculation. And the calculation works because they've done it thousands of times, and they know, with precision, what you will notice before you buy, and what you won't notice until it's too late. What they fix tells you almost nothing. What they skip tells you everything. I want to take you back to something I watched happen in 2011. A woman came into a lot where I was working, mid-40s, buying a car for her daughter heading off to college. She'd saved up $11,000. The car was a 2007 Camry with 74,000 miles. Clean on the outside, detailed interior, smelled like a rental, drove fine on the test loop. She bought it. 6 weeks later, the transmission started slipping. By week 10, it was gone. Rebuild cost $2,900. The fluid in that transmission, when the mechanic pulled it, was black. It had never been serviced in 74,000 miles, and the dealer knew it. Nobody lied to her. Nobody forged paperwork. They just cleaned what you could see and sold what you couldn't. That is the system. And it runs on one assumption, that you don't know what to look for. Here's how recon actually works. When a used car arrives at a dealership, off a trade-in, from auction, from a rental fleet return, the first stop is not the front lot. A reconditioning tech goes through the vehicle on a checklist. That checklist was not written by a mechanic. It was written, functionally, by the finance department, shaped by one question. What does this car need to sell at maximum margin? The goal of recon is not to make the car right. It is to make the car sellable. Those are not the same goal, and the gap between them is exactly where your money disappears. According to the National Automobile Dealers Association, the average dealership spends between $900 and $1,400 per used vehicle on reconditioning. That sounds like a real investment. Here's where it goes. The interior gets detailed, vacuumed, treated, odour neutralised. Smell is the first filter a buyer runs, consciously or not. If the car smells like cigarettes or wet dog, the deal is dead before a word is spoken. So they actually solve that problem. Wiper blades get replaced. Cost to the dealer, $8. Perceived value to the buyer walking around the car in the rain, enormous. Touch-up paint on door dings. New floor mats if the originals are destroyed. A battery test, because a car that won't start in the lot is an embarrassment they can't afford. And on some units, a fresh set of cheap tyres, the cheapest rubber they can source, installed because bald tyres kill a test drive before it starts. That is everything they fix. Interior, wipers, touch-up paint, floor mats, battery, sometimes tyres. The things a buyer sees, smells and feels in the first 5 minutes of contact. Now here's the other list, and I want you to feel each one of these, because every single item is a financial risk you're inheriting without knowing it. Transmission fluid. Most used cars that arrive at a dealership have never had a transmission service, and the dealer is not going to do it. A flush on an automatic transmission costs $150 to $250 at a shop. On a car with 60,000 original miles, that fluid is brown. It smells burnt. It is past its service window by a margin that should disqualify the car from being on a lot. But you cannot see it during a test drive. You won't feel it for 15,000 to 25,000 more miles. And by then, the car is yours. The return window is closed and the repair estimate starts at $2,500 and climbs fast. I watched a tech pull the dipstick on a truck once, look at the fluid colour, put it back and write checked on the recon sheet. That was the entire service. Checked. The truck sold 2 days later. Brake fluid. It's hygroscopic. It pulls moisture from the air over time, and that moisture drops its boiling point and corrodes brake hardware from the inside out. A brake fluid flush costs about $80. It is almost never done in recon. The pedal feels normal on a test drive. The car stops when you need it to. You won't know there's a problem until you're replacing a caliper at $400. Coolant. Old coolant turns acidic. Acidic coolant eats head gaskets and corrodes the aluminum components that modern engines are built from. A coolant flush costs $100 to $130. Skipped routinely because nothing about its condition is visible to a buyer during a walk around. Wheel alignment. A car running 3/4 of a degree out of alignment will destroy a set of tyres in under 10,000 miles, pull under hard braking and wear out suspension components ahead of schedule. An alignment costs $80 to $120. Buyers test drive in parking lots and straight stretches. Nobody tests alignment on a 5-minute loop, so it never gets corrected. Suspension bushings, the rubber and polyurethane components that keep your suspension geometry stable under load. When they wear out, you get vague steering, clunking over rough pavement, and premature tyre wear that compounds the alignment problem. Replacement runs $400 to $1,200 depending on the vehicle and how far it's gone, not on the recon checklist. Never has been. Engine mounts. Worn engine mounts cause vibration at idle and a clunk you'll feel under hard acceleration or when you drop into drive from park. You won't hit those conditions on a parking lot test drive. The problem costs $200 to $500 per mount to fix. Slow fluid leaks. A car might be seeping power steering fluid, weeping at the valve cover gasket, or losing coolant from a soft line, and none of it shows up on a lot walk around. Here's why. Before a car goes to the front lot, the undercarriage gets sprayed down. The leak looks like nothing. Looks clean. By the time it reappears in your driveway 3 weeks later, you're past any informal return conversation and well inside, sorry, sold as is territory. 7 items, 7 things that don't get fixed, and every single one of them was a choice made by someone running a margin calculation on a car you're about to buy. Now here's what you do about it. 5 moves in order. You don't need all 5 on every car, but the more of them you run, the more leverage you hold by the time you sit down at that desk. The first move costs you nothing but a decision to do it before you show up. Pull the Carfax or AutoCheck report on any vehicle before you walk onto the lot, not while you're there. Before. A single Carfax report runs about $40 at carfax.com. AutoCheck through Experian runs about $25. Some credit unions and insurance apps give you free access. Check yours before you spend $1. What you're looking for is not just accident history. You're reading the service record. A car with 78,000 miles and 2 service visits logged has been ignored. A car with the same mileage and 11 service visits logged has been cared for. That maintenance gap is worth more than any price negotiation you'll have at the desk. And most buyers walk onto the lot without ever looking at it. The second move is a 12-outlet tool that most dealers have never seen a customer use. Search transmission fluid test strips on Amazon. Brands like Titan run about $10 to $15 for a pack. Here's how you use it. Before the test drive, ask to pop the hood. Pull the transmission dipstick, press a strip against it, wait 10 seconds, and read the colour against the chart in the packaging. Brown fluid means it's due. Black fluid means it's overdue, long overdue. Either one is a deferred maintenance cost you're about to inherit. Price it at $200 minimum and subtract it from your offer, or make fluid service a condition of the deal. They don't know you ran the test. You do. That's the whole point. The third tool is the one that exposes what dealers actively try to bury. An OBD-II scanner, plug-in port under the dashboard, standard on every car sold in the United States since 1996. A basic Autel reader runs $25 to $35 on Amazon. The Innova 3100 RS is the one I'd recommend. About $60, reads live sensor data, not just stored codes. Here's what dealers do. Before a car goes to the front lot, a tech clears any fault codes from the ECU. The codes disappear. The check engine light goes off. The car looks clean. But the monitors, the internal readiness tests the car's computer runs to verify each system, don't fully reset for 50 to 100 miles of specific driving cycles after a clear. A freshly cleared car shows incomplete monitors. You plug in your scanner, navigate to monitor status, and if more than 2 monitors read incomplete, someone cleared codes recently. Something was wrong and they erased it instead of fixing it. That's not a car you buy at asking price. That might not be a car you buy at all. The fourth move is the most powerful one on this list, and it's the one dealers are most afraid of becoming standard practice. An independent pre-purchase inspection. Not the dealer's service department, not a chain shop that has a referral relationship with the lot. An independent ASE certified mechanic, your choice, your call. You drive the car to them or arrange it with the dealer. The inspection costs $100 to $150 and takes about an hour. What comes back is a written document. Every fluid condition, every worn component, every leak, every alignment reading. That document is not just information, it is a negotiating instrument. If the inspection turns up $1,400 in deferred maintenance, and it usually turns up something, you walk back into the dealer with paper, not an opinion. Paper. The inspection found $1,400 in documented deferred maintenance. I'd like to adjust the price accordingly or have these items completed before delivery. They can agree, counter, or decline. If they decline to negotiate on documented findings, that tells you something important. They reconditioned every other car on that lot, the same way they reconditioned this one. The Dealer Vault inspection checklist covers every system, every fluid, every component. In the exact sequence, a mechanic will run through the car, with ballpark repair costs next to each line so you can calculate your real number before you go back inside. Link is in the description. But don't go anywhere yet, because the fifth move is the one that costs you nothing except the willingness to say 7 words. And it changes the entire conversation the moment you say them. Before you agree to buy any used car, before the test drive, before you talk price, look at the salesman and ask, what did Recon do on this vehicle? 7 words. Watch what happens. A prepared salesman gives you the rehearsed answer, detail, tyres, fluids checked. That word, checked, is doing an enormous amount of quiet work. Checked is not replaced. Checked is not serviced. Checked means someone looked at it, wrote a word on a sheet and moved to the next car. If the salesman says fluids were serviced, you follow with, "Can I see the repair order?" Every item the Recon Bay touches generates a repair order in the dealer's DMS, their internal software system. If they service the transmission fluid, there is a repair order with a line item, a date, and a tech number. If they can't produce it within a few minutes, it wasn't done. Most buyers never ask this question. The entire sales process is structured around the assumption that you will sit down, test drive, and start talking about monthly payments. When you ask about the repair order instead, you've communicated something without saying it out loud. You know how this works. The negotiation changes from that point. Not dramatically, but measurably. The margin they plan to take from you gets smaller, because the math they were running assumed you didn't know to ask. Before you walk away from this, I want to give you one more thing. The priority stack. Not every item on the skip list is equal risk. If you're buying on a tight budget and can only act on one finding from your inspection, here's how to rank them. Transmission condition is the highest stakes item, full stop. A failed automatic transmission on a mid-size sedan costs $2,500 to $4,500 installed. On a truck, $3,500 to $6,000. These are the repairs that strand people, that leave someone making payments on a car sitting in a driveway. Run the test strip, check the colour. If it's black, treat this as a walkaway or a serious price negotiation, not a minor point. Brake fluid is low cost to flush, but high cost to ignore over time. Degraded brake fluid corrodes calipers and brake lines from the inside out. The $80 service now prevents the $600 caliper replacement in 18 months. Make it a condition of the deal. Coolant and alignment are your negotiating chips. Real money, but predictable repair costs. Use the inspection findings to document them and subtract the number from your offer. Suspension bushings and engine mounts are medium-term problems. They fail gradually, they won't leave you stranded, but they cost you entire wear and secondary component stress. Price them into your offer and move on. A slow leak is the one where you need your mechanic's read before you categorize it. A valve cover gasket seep is $150. A head gasket weep is $2,500 to $2,800. Those are not the same situation. You cannot tell the difference from a parking lot. Your mechanic can in about 10 minutes. The buyers who leave money on the table are not buyers who are bad at negotiating. They're buyers who walked in without documentation. Feelings don't move the needle in a dealership. Numbers do. A calm, specific, documented repair order from an independent mechanic moves the needle. I'm not asking you to take my word for it. Here's the paper. That's the entire shift. Walk in with paper and you are a different kind of transaction. The salesman who spent the first 5 minutes quietly sizing up how motivated you are, how emotional you are about the car, how likely you are to accept the first counter. That same salesman is now looking at someone who brought a mechanic's report to the table. The dynamic is different. The outcome is different. Share this with someone who's buying a car in the next 3 months. Not as a favour to me. They may never find this on their own. And the system they're about to walk into is counting on that. One person who learns the repair order question before they go in is one less person who drives home with $1,400 in deferred maintenance they're now responsible for. Subscribe if you want to stay ahead of what's coming next on this channel. What I'm covering next is the finance office, specifically the 4 products the F&I manager is trained to sell in the last 10 minutes of your visit. What each one actually costs the dealer to provide, and what you should say when they present them. That conversation costs buyers an average of $1,800 per transaction. You'll know the number before you sit down. Everything shared here is general consumer information. Always have a qualified mechanic perform a full pre-purchase inspection before buying any used vehicle.